I'm very excited to share my story with you. I do want to give some caveats to this story. Number one, there are some sad moments. Please don't be sad. There is indeed a happy ending, and you are seeing it right here in front of you. I live an incredibly joyous life now with my wife Maritza and my son, and all things work together for good to them that love God. But this is a journey. This is a journey, and it's a journey that I am still on. I am what I like to call a queer Christian. I mean that both in the LGBTQ way as well as strange. I am a strange Christian in many ways, especially if I look back. If I were to see myself now, if 16-year-old Bond were to see myself now, she would not recognize this form of Christianity. And truly, that is a wonderful thing that I'm ecstatic about. So I want to first open up with the passage that is listed, the scripture that's listed, and it is from Romans 10, verses 11 through 13. The scripture says, "No one who believes in him will be put to shame, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all and is generous to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." If you don't mind, I'd like to open us up with a word of prayer. Dearest Creator, thank you so much for these moments that you have given us to gather together, to enjoy the fellowship of one another, and to bask in your presence. What a good thing you have given us, and we thank you. I pray, Lord, that as we spend this time together, that each of us would grow in some small way, and that each of us would be just a little bit changed and learn something that will help us and help our fellow man along our journey. Allow us to be better, Lord, better than we were when we walked in, better than we were when we woke up this morning, praising you and recognizing your graciousness in all that we receive today. In your blessed name we pray. Amen. I am going to tell this story in 3 acts. I also think that I am funny, so if at any point you think that I am funny, please feel free to laugh. That is actually the intent, and I will not be offended. Also, my printer died on me this morning, and so some pages are printed and some aren't, and we roll with it, right? All right, so Act 1. I was a perverted 9-year-old, or so I thought. I thought that I was destined to live a life as a moral degenerate outside of the grace of our Creator and segregated from the fellowship of a church family. And that's because around the age of 9, I began to realize that certain people gave me butterflies in my stomach, and those weren't the same people that put butterflies in the other girls' stomachs. And I knew, based upon the church that I was in and the school that I went to, that was not okay. I felt cursed because I wasn't a boy, because being a boy would solve all of those issues. And so I was simultaneously convinced and confused by the Creator's obvious mistake. I was equally convinced of something that I considered diametrically opposed to my perversion, and that was that I wanted to be a wife, I wanted to raise kids, I wanted to have a beautiful home behind a white picket fence. So what was a girl of 9 years old to do with these equally strong innate desires bursting forth from within the same little spirit? Well, you don't do anything because you're 9, of course, but you do dream. You imagine what you could be. You set goals. You seek out role models. You begin to develop a sense of self and priorities and values that will feed into the decisions you make as a teen and beyond. The sense of self that I began to develop, it wasn't pretty. In a parochial school where we fundraised by selling shirts that said, "God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve," I had no role models. When I imagined myself kissing a girl, we were immediately engulfed in the flames of hell. Each time the evil that was gay came up in nasty conversation somewhere in my school, the truth about who I was sank deeper and deeper inside. And as the hormones of my teen years raged, I felt dirtier and dirtier for thoughts you wouldn't be surprised to find in any adolescent boy's head. But I was a girl. I struggled to find the words to express just how I felt during those years. All I can say is that there was a profound self-loathing, much more than my little spirit could bear, and shame, deep, gut-wrenching shame. So strong that even then, as I was writing this, there was a flush to my cheeks, a churning in my gut, and an intense desire to stop giving voice to those feelings that I spent so much energy suppressing. And I was supposed to feel that way. When you get right down to it, that is exactly the way that the process was designed to work. I was supposed to believe that gay was nothing more than a perversion, and it infected those with weak moral character. I was supposed to believe that the Creator would not love the creation unless the creation hated itself. And if gay were merely a choice to perform and take part in a series of lewd acts, it could be marginalized as a lifestyle, as a temporary status, or as a phase. A transient, flesh-based status that could bring you nothing but transient, flesh-based pleasure. Gay does not love, gay does not nurture, gay does not commit, period. Without evidence to the contrary in my sheltered life, I ate the lies, I swallowed my natural sense of self, and I made the choice to be straight. Of course, nothing really changed inside, and when I went to college, I found it otherworldly enough to finally act on the feelings that I had been suppressing. But I only planned to act on them temporarily, because even with this newfound freedom, there wasn't much newfound knowledge about what it actually meant to be gay. In my mind, it was still a temporary dalliance, college indiscretion, an opportunity to sow my wild gay oats before settling down and getting on to the real business of living the straight life that would give me spouse, kids, white picket fence, really the love, joy, and commitment that I was still yearning for. I was at least 20 before I considered the idea of a relationship between two same-gendered people a legitimate option for others. I was even older before I considered a same-sex relationship a legitimate option for myself. And it was only then that I could come out. So that is Act One. It is my childhood of growing up in churches and schools that told me that what I knew was my identity, was part of me from some of the youngest ages that I could remember, was just bad. It was disgusting. So on to Act Two, which goes a little bit backward in that it begins when I am age 16, and I am in these schools in puberty, raging against my mom, doing all the normal things. But that self-loathing, that gut-wrenching self-loathing, it was really eating away at me and eating away at me in my mind. And I prayed a lot about it. I was taught to pray about it. And I could not get to a point where I could understand why I felt this way, why it was so natural and why it was so wrong. Why was I born to be an evil person? Why would God allow me to be born if I was just this evil? It just didn't seem right. It's something, I just couldn't live with myself, honestly, when you got right down to it. And when you loathe yourself that much every day, it takes a toll on you. And unfortunately, when I was 16 years old, I did try to take my life because of the being mentally tired. I mean, really, if you're just going to put it into a word, just being mentally and emotionally tired. Thankfully, 16-year-old me did not succeed, and she lived to continue on to Howard University and to see different iterations of relationships and to understand that there were other options, maybe. Now, when I came back from Howard to Columbus, I went to law school, and I was still predominantly playing it straight. I was playing it straight so much that I had a boyfriend, and together we had a son when I was 23 and in law school. And something about having that son pushed me closer to coming out and to recognizing who I was. There's something about being a mother, being a parent, that makes you really take a hard look at yourself and try to figure out who you are before you try to raise another person and help them figure out who they are. But there was one moment when I was 24 when I really, really, really had a come to Jesus with God. So I want to talk about my niece, Clarice. Clarice was an old soul. She called me by my first name, pronouncing it better than most adults. It's a tough name, I'll give her that. She rarely formalized it by putting auntie in front of it. And that felt right because she was also my playmate, my friend, my sister, and my teacher. She made me feel 10 feet tall. She was beautiful. She was smarter than I'll ever be. She left an impression on everyone she met, and she rejuvenated my grandparents, and all of us in our family could agree on one thing. She was important and she was perfect. All of that and so much more in just 4.5 years. In June of 2004, Clarice became an angel. So there I was, 24 years old, a new mom, knee-deep in law school, and grieving. Already emotionally exhausted and trying to piece back together my life plan, because no, I did not plan to become a mom at 23 while in law school. That'd be weird. It was not a good choice. Clarice's death was a devastating blow in that moment. The blow that more than anything else in my life really made me question what I believed about who we are, who God is, and what in the hell is it that we're doing here? I can't say for sure if it was before or after the funeral, but I still remember the moment in my mom's dining room like it was yesterday. It was that moment that God and I started over. It began with a question. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. No, wait, that's wrong. Sorry. Not quite, but close. I asked God, what is going, like, who are you? Like literally, let's just start at the beginning. Who are you? You know, first of all, you made me this horrible, degenerate being that is just immoral from the moment that she was born. And then you take the life of a 4.5-year-old? I don't get you. What is going on? And a small voice came to me and said, well, what do you believe? In the deepest depths of your soul, what do you know about me? Not what my grandparents had told me or what my mom had told me or what my school had told me. What do you know about me? What did I know beyond knowing? And was there any part of my faith left that was unshakable? And there was. I knew that I had been created. It was all I had, but it was enough. Just 3 words. I was created. It was liberating. It was reassuring. It was the new foundation of my faith. I was created, and so was Clarice. She was not ours. She, like all of us, was a creation belonging to the Creator, but loaned to us for a time. We could admire, we could love, we could touch and be touched, but she was never ours to keep. And that is how I found my peace. And for a while, that's all I had. My spiritual life consisted of an acknowledgement of the Creator by the creation and little else. But over time, it grew, like relationships do, into a deeper, fuller understanding. It's a relationship that I became immensely proud of because it was mine alone. It did not flow from a school or a parent or a denomination. It was a tiny seed in my heart, watered with my tears, blossoming slowly but continuously. Clarice's death did not send me back to church every Sunday. Her life inspired something so much greater. So that is Act 2. That is how my niece helped me to gain a better understanding of who God is and to begin me on that path of having my own relationship with God that actually lined up with who I knew myself to be. But after a while, I felt like there was a hole in my life, a yearning, an unquenched thirst, and seek as I might, I could not find the right fountain. I needed a church home, not a church home. And so there are many affirming congregations in Central Ohio. It's a beautiful thing that we live in a city like Columbus where you can find affirming congregations. I appreciate and love all of them. As someone who works in LGBTQ issues, I love being able to tell people, you can find a church home. I don't really care what denomination you are. There's somewhere for you here in Columbus. They have stood up for and nurtured queer Christians for years, if not decades. But those congregations weren't right for me. They aren't what I needed in a church home. Because there's two different things, right? Between just showing up in a pew and actually being able to call a place home. So I kept searching. And search. I mean, for years, like 3, 4, 5 years, we were searching. And I say we because I think Maritza was searching too, but I think I do all the research and then I show it to her. And we never really got up the nerve to attend very many churches in this research. I don't know, you probably haven't experienced this, but when you are someone who is LGBTQ, walking into a church, even one that is affirming, can feel a little bit awkward. As well, my wife and I grew up with 2 very different church backgrounds. I grew up Apostolic Pentecostal. She grew up Catholic. And so we never really thought that we were going to find a place that both of us would be comfortable. I needed a place that was loud enough to keep my attention, and she needed a place that was quiet enough not to scare her away. So you can imagine, we did not think that we were going to find that. And also, I knew that finding a church in that Apostolic Pentecostal kind of vein was going to be a little bit difficult because they are often unashamedly and notoriously anti-gay. And so there was this gap between my spiritual familiarity and my spiritual affirmation is where I found myself. But I wasn't standing in that gap alone. Physically, yes, but spiritually, no. I created spiritual space for myself. I would get up in the morning and I would turn on iTunes gospel radio, and I would, every morning, that was like my time. That was my devotional, my praise and worship time. Until one morning, a certain song came on, and it was by Tasha Cobb, and it was called Break Every Chain. And I'm in the shower just singing at the top of my lungs. It's a beautiful song, and she ad-libbed a line, though. Break the chain of homosexuality. And there it was again. Somehow, even in my own shower, the homophobia of the Holiness Church had managed to find me. I was devastated, spiritually and emotionally devastated. And I stopped trusting a little bit again. I thought, am I really ever going to be able to walk into a church and really trust it and really believe that this is a place that affirms me and really wants me to be there? Thankfully, we got through that moment. My faith, I found it again, and I learned to trust again. And one of the beautiful things is that attending Move United Church has been beautiful and wonderful for the affirmation of my faith. I would just say as a side note that another part of this journey that's been kind of happening in the background is that I've lost some people. I've lost some family during this journey. And part of it is because I have chosen to lose that family. Just like I chose to be straight, there have been times in my life when I have chosen to lose family. And it's because I took offense when they chose to love me and hate my sin. It's not something that sits well with me. And even if they are family, it's just not something that I'm willing to accept because of my own personal struggle as a servant of Christ, as an advocate for queer youth, and as an ally to others. I don't believe that I should accept that. I don't believe that I should accept you loving me and hating my sin. Accepting your love while you hate my sin is a disservice to my Creator, in actuality. I have sought my Creator's counsel on my knees, tears gushing from my eyes, sobs choking the words in my mouth more times than I can count. So turning the other cheek as people lash out with verbal violence is a disservice to the people that in my community that I serve every day. I encourage them to live authentically by living authentically myself, promising them that I am doing all that I can to create a world in which their authentic self is valued and safe. So I can't accept the smiles while you snicker behind my back. Some say that love is thicker than water, and I have chosen to believe otherwise. I have chosen to believe that blood can actually be thinned by your lack of unconditional love can thin that blood and can make it so that we really don't have any connection. One of the relationships that I've lost is my mom, and but I love her. I want to be very clear about that. Losing relationships with people, choosing to lose relationships with people doesn't mean that you have to choose to stop loving them. I love my mom dearly. I've spent my many nights crying myself to sleep because I miss her, and I worry about her, and I need her. But I also love who I am now. And honestly, I love that person more, and I should. I'm supposed to. I love the honest and open way in which I live my life, and I'm not willing to go back or give that up. I love my wife. I love the home we've made together. Some would say that it's for that reason, perhaps, that I have chosen to be motherless. Perhaps. But I cannot be the child that she wants to mother. Like any of us, I can only be the child that she created. I can only be the child that God created me to be. So, there we go. 3 acts of this journey to get where I am to this moment in my life of queer Christianity. I will say that there is a 4th act, and that is coming out in queer spaces as Christian, which in some ways is almost as difficult. Christians, believe it or not, are not always trusted in queer spaces, and there can be a reaction to hearing that someone in your midst, someone who is an activist for LGBTQ issues, would be someone who actually goes to church and helps lead a worship service every Sunday. And so I come out in those spaces as a Christian, and I do so proudly, and I do so hoping that other queer folk who are on a journey similar to mine will see the love of a gracious Creator through me. If they see that I have found a church home that is loving and affirming and is making me a better LGBTQ activist, I hope that that will give them hope. That if they do want a church home, that if that is a yearning or something that they have in their lives, that they will see that it is actually possible to find a church home and to be a full-fledged Christian, no asterisks, but maybe just the word queer in front of it. Thank you so much for having me this morning.